Hello everyone and welcome. In order to give you guys a quick overview of what's going on in Arc 2 with all these different factions, I'm going to give you a quick overview of all of the 5 major factions that are in the conflict involved in Arc 2. However, I'm not going to name any direct Arc 2 spoilers, so don't worry about this. The only thing that you need to know is that as the basis for Arc 2, you basically want to gather these Kimochi gems, because if you have the game Kimochi gems, apparently you gain control of the double system or something like that. We don't know the details anyway, but this is basically the basis, and with that basis, we're now going to go over the first faction that is part of this conflict, and it is of course the Kamehameha Magia Union, which is basically all the magical girls that we already know from Arc 1. They are led currently by Iroha, and they are a rather loose coalition of basically every magical girl that is living in Kamehameha, well, at least most of them. And of course that means that all these different people that are part of that coalition are rather diverse. There's many differences that probably might be a source of some sort of conflict maybe at some point, who knows. And they're trying to get in control of the double system all so that they can spread it across the entire country, maybe even across the entire world if possible, and that's what they're basically trying to do with all the help that they can get. However, of course, the main problem that the Kamehameha Magia Union has, aside from it being such a loose coalition, is that the leader is of course a rather weak leader, and I do mean sort of emotionally weak when it comes to a really big conflict like this, because Iroha doesn't really know what to do other than telling people, hey, please stop fighting. And then if people don't stop fighting, Iroha just sort of throws her hands up and goes, well, I did everything I could. And yeah, what does she even do at that point? And having a leader like that might be kind of cause for concern, and might lead to maybe at some point the Kamehameha Magia Union potentially crumbling. Well, we'll have to figure out what happens later. But for now, let's move on to the next faction, the main antagonists probably of, at least so far, of Arc 2, Promised Blood. They are led by Yuna, who is in a council together with Ao and Juri, and they in total are a coalition of many different street gangs of magical girls, whether like it's literally like gangs, but of completely just only magical girls, and they all come from Futatsuki City, where there was a history of many betrayals and wars and just in general great bloodshed that has been going on in that city for years now. However, recently they had a scarcity of witches that led to even greater bloodshed than before, and it's pretty much normal for Futatsuki City magical girls to kill each other. That's just part of what you do each day. But recently they did that a lot more, so they decided that they're going to do something about this, and they realized that Kamehameha was to blame for the recent scarcity of witches that they had, and so they decided to head over to Kamehameha and, well, just get some revenge. So on one hand, they want to forcefully take control of the double system so that they can take it for Futatsuki City and make sure they get the double system so they don't have to fight each other anymore. Well, at the same time, they also kind of want to kill people. So, of course, the main problem with Promised Blood is that they are extremely bloodthirsty and basically kill first, ask questions later, that sort of sense. However, of course, the question becomes, how far is too far? Could the coalition of Promised Blood maybe break if Yuna does go too far? Once again, we'll have to figure that out by reading Arc 2, I guess. Next up, we have Tokime Clan, who are led by the amazing Shizuka. It is a coalition of girls from various bloodlines and families with connection to the Tokime village, which is basically the faction of all the rural Megoka, all the Megoka that come from villages for the most part. They have this rather dutiful and righteous ideology, basically these traditional Japanese values that you would expect, and also some values from Buddhism. That's sort of the way that they are situated. And in general, they want to gain control of the double system for their village, but not just for the village, but also for the rest of Japan, because they're like, Japan is awesome. Imagine a giant foam finger that says #1 Japan on it. Basically, that's the kind of coalition that they are. However, the main problem with Tokime Clan is that Shizuka is always torn between either working together with other people that might have similar goals, or saying, no, we're going to do our own thing, we're going to focus on Tokime first, and then maybe what the other guys want. And how will we how will Shizuka be able to move forward and will she be able to make the right choices? Well, I have to read Arc 2 to figure that out. Next up, we have Neo-Magias, who have been founded by Shigure and Hagumu, and they want to basically continue with this old ideology that Magias had, which more specifically is the part of the ideology that was about the supremacy of magical girls, basically, because in general they want magical girls to be publicly recognized. They want to receive recognition for what they are doing as magical girl. They want to be celebrated for what they are doing by the general public, instead of just dying and being forgotten and not receiving any sort of thanks from anyone. They don't really like that part, which in theory does sound like an okay goal, to like not be forgotten and instead get something back for all this fighting you're doing. But on the other hand, yeah, kind of saying that, well, magical girls are the best and normal people are not the best, so fuck you guys, we want to be celebrated by you. That's like, okay, whatever. So of course the main problem with them is that they have this very naive and short-sighted thinking, very naive goals, coupled with complete and utter incompetence. Probably the most incompetent characters of all of Magia Record are in this group. However, what lies in the future for Neo-Magias will have to be answered together with the question of what is going on with the mysterious Himena, and what will she bring to Neo-Magias, what does she have in plan, and is there even any future for them at all? Well, we'll have to read Arc 2 to figure that out. Next up, the final group is Folklore of Zero. They are led by the enigmatic Rabbi, and we don't really know anything about them. Like, we only even know their name because we've been told their name in some press material that came alongside the game. And Rabbi just talks most of the time about the Doomsday Clock, and the Doomsday Clock is this Doomsday Clock that actually exists in real life, although it's not an actual clock. It's more like this idea that you would show on a clock how close humanity is to the next man-made ginormous apocalyptic disaster. And Rabbi talks about this Doomsday Clock and says that in general we are being right now very close to disaster, just a few minutes until midnight basically. We don't really know much more else in general as part of them, but they do seem to know a bit more about what's going on than what the rest of the characters know. They're being very secretive, very mysterious about everything that's going on, and from everything that people believe, people will just believe that they are going to potentially be a main player, a core player in the later parts of Arc 2, but not really so much in the earlier parts. So this seems to be some sort of endgame stuff that is going to go on with Folklore of Zero. And there's also a very interesting theory going on, the spy theory, that says that a couple of the currently unreleased magical girls that are part of other factions are in fact secret spies for Folklore of Zero that have snuck themselves into other factions and might betray them at some point to report back to Folklore of Zero. Some of these characters like Asahi, Urara, Alexandra, but that's just a theory. A game theory. No, it's really just a theory that's... Some people will say it might really be true. Other people are saying no, that's probably not true. But you know what? If you want to figure that out, you're gonna have to keep reading Arc 2. So that's basically most of the main factions, like the main 5 factions, of which like Kamehameha Union, Promised Blood, and Tokyo Clan are mostly just sort of actually engaged in the story, while the other 2 exist, I guess, for the most part. However, there's also a 6th faction that I guess you could also say is part of this entire story. I mean, they are part of the story, but they're not really invested too much into what's going on, and it is the honorable mention that goes to Puella Care, or some people say Pure Care. The way it's written in katakana would suggest it's Puella Care, like Puella Care, it's what it was written as, but some people write it as Pure Care. I don't know really, but I'm just gonna call them Puella Care. And the idea behind them is, well, first off, they're just a bunch of traveling adjusters led by Olivia Medeiros, and they're just traveling the country, currently traveling the city, to just support any sort of magical they come across and just give out adjustments and stuff, not for free, but basically just be another version of Mitama, basically going around helping other people as well. And they are also kind of mad at Mitama for having broken her neutrality back in Arc 1. when she decided to, well, at one point, help Magius and then help the other characters as well. So she kind of broke neutrality twice, so it's a kind of balance now, whatever. But everything that we've seen so far, they seem to just be a neutral party. They're just here to basically be medics, I guess, so like the neutral medics on the sidelines of a war, and they're not really directly involved in the conflict at all. So yeah, they kind of are a faction, but at the same time, sure, they're just a group of people that exist, I guess. They're also part of this story. But yeah, that was basically it so far. What is going to happen with all these different factions? How will the conflict evolve? Is Himina actually completely goddamn crazy? Yes. Is Shizuka cute? Yes. Is Iroha a weak-willed person that will probably cause the Kamehameha Union to crumble? Probably. Is Yuna way too bloodthirsty and might get betrayed by her closest friends? Seems likely. Well, all of these open questions are just questions that, well, you have to read out too in order to figure that out. So that's, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next time.